Hello. Welcome back to another episode of Critical Reactions with your host, Bryan. We're going to start a new theme this week. This one's called Featuring a Choir. Sort of like when we did Featuring Saxophone a couple weeks back. I think that's what we did, right? Anyways, this is any song that has a choir in it. We're going to be kicking it off with some Bjork. The track in question is Sorrowful Soil. Let's dive into it and see what Bjork is bringing to the table today.
Into sorrowful, sorrowful, our roots are dark. Into sorrowful, sorrowful, our roots are dark. Our roots into sorrowful, sorrowful, our roots.
The sub bass on that. It's a very rich synth tone. It works so well with the depth of the vocal work. Yeah, we have a lot of higher end stuff here, and if the synth comes back, it's going to be just in this area. It fills out the sound very well.
2 or 3 nests woven with a mother's nihilist had come through this. Nihilist had me. You did well. You did your best. Well, you did your best.
Just melts listening to this.
You did well. You did well.
That's fun.
You did well.
So the white noise at the end, I wonder how y'all interpret that. I hear it as wind, which I think makes sense for the idea of planting your roots in soil. It implies trees, flowers, bushes, stuff like this. And wind, I think, is a natural part of when I think of flora, of watching tree branches sway or, flowers get whipped around in the wind. And I don't know what to interpret it yet. I have to dig more into the lyrics later, but I was not expecting a field recording there at the end. And I'm still not entirely sure that that's what it is. It still kind of just compressed white noise to me. It could be a lot of things, but like I said, my interpretation is wind, which I think goes along with this idea of planting roots and bringing on the metaphorical imagery of trees and plants and stuff. All right, so the meat of this track, though, I don't think this is going to be a very lengthy video at all, is of course the vocals. I like the way that the vocals eased their way into the fullness. We could have easily started this song with a full choir. Maybe not the full one, because by the end of the song, there's got to be 20, 25 different vocal tracks going on. It gets stacked. But we could have started with 4 or 5, something very large, and instead we didn't. Single vocalist, single vocal line. I like that. The song starts from nothing and then builds up as slowly as possible in some ways before making some giant leaps that I think are very important for contrast. To have these moments that sort of it's like the end of a paragraph, right? And you have that line break, and it sort of divides up an extended series of text in a way that's a bit more readable. I think that these large jumps between massively layered sections and more minimally layered sections really helps to create these division lines in the song. There's also these moments where there's no vocals at all, just rest for upwards of 2 bars at a time, just allowing any sort of resonant tone to exist. Sometimes even just using the synth to fill in this space between vocal lines, just to create these punctuating moments to divide up the song. I think that works really well. But anyways, we build them up. Start with 1 vocal, then 2, and then 4. And I was expecting something along the lines of that. Dang, I'm completely blanking out on this. Bon Iver. We checked out a song called Heavenly Father, I think on a live stream. And it was, if I remember correctly, it was 5 or 6 vocalists, and they were all there all the time. And it was gorgeous to listen to, but it was a bit more static than something like this. And I love how it, in the end, it is, generally speaking, a lot of vocals singing at the same time. And while we do have varying parts that overlap, there are sections where you just have a lot of vocalists singing the same thing and creating this unification. And the whole song could have very easily been that, but they didn't go that route. They went for this building up of ideas. And I think that works really well at creating this rising and falling energy within the song. But they also create contrast another way, because as I just mentioned, there's not just one line in here. And I found this really beautiful early on when everything was in line with each other, but one word might have been emphasized by a different vocal group. Maybe the first couple of syllables might get said by a smaller group and almost like a false start, and then the idea repeats itself with the larger group of vocalists to say the full sentence. Little ideas like this that are already beginning to put the ideas of possibility into my mind. They're separating things out. Well, how far are they going to take this? What are they going to do with it? Before long, we start seeing multiple lines, a sort of counterpoint going on. And by the end of the song, we have 3 totally distinct lines, melody and text, doing totally different things, creating this wildly rich and dense music. Absolutely gorgeous growth from just a couple of lines, a couple of vocal lines at the beginning in harmony, to the multifaceted 25 vocalist, 3 section ideas with sick harmonies all across that, and it really blows my mind to hear how all of this fits together. It's difficult enough to write counterpoint, to write three melodies all going on at the same time where none of the notes clash, to ensure that at any moment, any beat or even a subdivision of a beat doesn't introduce clashing harmony, where the chords of the three melodies, sorry, the notes of the three melodies create a chord that is, it sounds positive, that there's no tension or dissonance in that. That's hard enough. But then to add 4, 5, 6 layers of harmony, stacking them, you're not just doing three separate monophonic lines. That means that the melody itself only consists of one note at a time. We now have three polyphonic, very wide polyphonic lines going on at the same time. And the fact that it still sounds rich and cohesive and consonant in its harmony absolutely blew me away. I don't know if I could do that. There's got to be a trick to it. I mean, solid chord theory is really going to help, but at the same time, it's got to be a lot of octave work, right? If we use power chords, which I doubt that Bjork did, but I'm just hear me out. Power chords, root, fifth, and octave, which is the root. You're really only dealing with two chords here, and then you stack octaves of that. You can get away with what's 3 octaves. You would get 7 notes out of that. It would sound very full. It would not sound super rich though. There's really only 2 notes here. But then when you do that in the other 2 sections, now you're only dealing with 6 notes in total. It's very easy to balance that beat by beat. Maybe that's what they're doing. They're just simplifying the chords down. These aren't massively detailed chords. They're just stacked octavely. That would help, but you'd still have to go beat by beat. Every chord transition, you're going to have to check it against the other 2 chords. It sounds very time consuming. Unless you just have some innate feeling of how chord progressions work, and you can just like envision it. I wager that people with synesthesia for music could probably do this very well. But like to me, it seems like magic, and it probably is just a lot of dedication and time. Sort of like CGI video editing. It looks really cool. It's I mean, there's skill to it, but it's also just a lot of time that goes into it. It's not something you just crank out in an afternoon or something. And that might be what's happening here. Anyways, very, very difficult, if nothing else, just to have all these stacked chords constantly moving. And then we get to the production side of all this too, though, because as many lines that we have towards the end of the song, it's listenable. I can distinctly hear all 3 of the parts. I can hear the harmonies and chordal qualities of all 3 of the parts. It does get a little messy at times, but there's a strong enough clarity to it. And at this point of having this many vocal lines and this much harmony going on, it's kind of normal. There's a lot of sonic information going into the listener. It makes sense it's going to get a little cluttered. I don't really know if you could do it much better. Well, other than recording a choir in a natural auditorium, something with really good acoustics. I assume that this was recorded in a recording studio, and Bjork went in there and just recorded 25 different vocal lines for this song, and then everything else was done in production. So there is going to be an artificiality to it, and maybe that's part of what I'm hearing too. Because we've listened to some choir recordings on here, and they are exceptionally clear, even with a lot of moving parts to them. So it might be a thing of the artificiality of multi-tracking yourself versus getting a full choir together in something outside of a recording booth, and just capturing the natural acoustics of a place, and the placement of the microphones are going to pick up different voices in different areas of the mix, and it's just going to be a natural thing, not something that you have to pan these vocals around. So maybe that's what I'm hearing in regards to that. But still, I mean, if I look at what's on the music here, though, absolutely gorgeous. But anyways, the production is really good. It's not perfect, but I think it's good enough. What I do like, though, is there's an instrument in here. There's a synthesizer. There's a synthesizer in this track. I'm trying to figure out. I've been thinking about this for the past, 10 minutes. In fact, I was thinking about it during the song too. What is it doing here for a song that's so focused on the natural sound of vocals? We have this digital sound wave. It kind of feels out of place at times, but as we get closer to the end of the song and we have all of these stacks, it kind of fits in underneath some of the vocals and makes them sound digital. Like it layers itself against one of the vocals and creates this robotic sound to it, something that you would get out of, auto-tune or something like that, by cranking up the precision a little too high. Not to the point of like T-Pain levels, but just enough to get that little digital edge under the vocals. I don't think that there is any aggressive pitch correction done on this. I just don't get that perception of Bjork. She's a really good singer. I don't see why she would need to overtune herself like that. But the inclusion of the synth does generate some of these sounds as the timbres clash. As my brain tries to hear all of these lines together, it's going to aggregate some of the information, and that's one of the things I end up hearing. And I find it wild that within these several recordings of acoustic human vocals, I have this synth and it attaches to vocals and I hear them digitally too. But the song, I think, is also, it's about nature, utilizing the metaphor of putting down your roots to, to plant yourself somewhere and to grow a future in a place rather than being a nomad and always being able to leave things behind, to always move into the next city or whatever, to say, this is where I live, this will be my home. I think that's what the lyrics are about. But still, we have the natural metaphor of setting your roots down. How does the synthesizer fit into that? I don't know. I'm still really curious about this. It doesn't give any new information. I think even as far as pitch concerned, it isn't providing any harmony that another vocal isn't also providing. It does fill in some gaps in places. So I don't know. What's everyone else's interpretation of it? Did it feel out of place to you? I don't know. Did it just fit right in? Maybe it completed the song for you. It would have felt empty without it. I don't know. I'm still a little lost on it. And I think that about wraps this up. I mean, it's Bjork. I've talked about her vocal delivery and her textures of her vocals and her inflections and stuff on several other videos. And aside from her vocals, there's nothing else to the song. Just beautiful, rich chords that you can melt inside of, and amazing counterpoint. I don't see any point in wasting anyone's time. So let's dive into some lyrics, see what's going on there. So lyrically, this is a song dedicated to, well, her mother in particular, who was sick at the time that she wrote this. And in an interview, she stated that her and her brother kind of realized that around this time that this was the end of her mother's life, of the final chapter of it. And I mean, True to her gut instinct, her mother passed away not long after the song was released. But the chorus says, "Into sorrowful soil our roots are dug." I'm not entirely sure what this is supposed to represent. I mean, sorrowful soil, sure, this is a sad point in time for them. The idea of digging your roots into this sad soil, I mean, it's possible that you're finding, I mean, plants dig their roots into soil to find nourishment. So, whatever they're gaining from this soil is sad. Is it using their sadness and the sorrow of this incident to, I don't know, to make art, to be better, trying to find a positive use of this negative emotion? Is that what it's saying? Verse 1, though, I think is wonderful. It says, in a woman's lifetime, she gets 400 eggs, but only 2 or 3 nests, woven with a mother's life force, emotional, textile, self-sacrificial. The idea here is that usually a woman, on average, has about 400 eggs, and that the average children per person, per woman, is 2 to 3. I don't know where these statistics come from, but she's stating them as fact. I'm going to roll with it within the context of the song. I'm not going to go fact check this. So 400 eggs, but only 2 or 3 nests. And I think nests is interesting because it's not 2 or 3 children or 2 or 3 of the eggs hatch, but it's 2 or 3 nests, which is a home to raise children or baby birds, keeping with the metaphor. The idea of setting down a home is what I assumed the song was going to be about when we talked about putting your roots down. But beyond that, it goes into this next idea. Nests are woven. It's branches and tree pieces and debris and all sorts of stuff all woven together to form this nest. It's really intricate and blows my mind that birds can do this. So we get to this idea that these nests are woven with the mother's life force. But remember, the nest is also, figuratively speaking, the children. And so the children are woven with the mother's life force. They become emotional textile. Textile is any woven fabrics or stuff like thread, yarn, anything like this. It's something that you have to weave together to create something larger. It says it's self-sacrificial. The idea here is that the mother takes a part of herself and uses it to help form these children, sacrificing a bit of herself and creating this emotional textile, this emotionally woven new thing. I love it. It's a beautiful way of figuratively speaking about motherhood. Verse 2, though, says, nihilist happening cuts through this. I don't know how to interpret this, unless it's saying that through all this positivity, you can still feel nihilistic about it. You are, after all, losing a parent in Bjork's situation here. And as positive of a spin as you want to put on honoring your mother, there's still the negative emotion in there, and that can cut through any sort of praise, any sort of honor that you want to have, regarding this person you're about to lose. But then after this, it says, "You did well. You did your best. You did well. You did well." Just repeats that over and over. This apparently comes from a pamphlet that she found in a hospital when her grandfather passed. This simple, universal, generic message on how to deal with the loss of loved ones. gives general to-do lists like washing your laundry and stuff like this, just ways to push forward. But she says there's also a part in the pamphlet that just asked if you're doing well. And so here at the end of the song, I suppose she puts that there as a little reminder, universal message. But I don't know who it's for. Is it for those who are left? You have lost a parent, and it's a reminder that you can still do things well. Or is it a message for her mother? On her deathbed, letting her mom know you did a great job raising me and my brother, that we have your life force in us. We would not be the people we are without your guidance, your parenting, your knowledge. You did well. I'm not sure which way to read that, though. I do like the latter description there, though it has really nothing to do with her authorial reasoning for putting it in here. But it is a somber song with absolutely gorgeous vocal work. That is a little bit of a testament and some praise for her mother, immortalizing her mother in music. And I think that's beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. And it's done in such a gorgeous way as well. Just a really great song from top to bottom. Those are my thoughts on Björk's Sorrowful Soil. What do you think of this track? Is there anything that stood out to you? Anything that you would like to add on to what I said or correct me on? Maybe you just have your own thoughts, opinions, and stuff completely devoid of anything I brought up. Maybe you heard something totally unique in here. Put all that stuff down in the comment section. Above that, in the description box, is a link for Linktree. You'll be able to go here, find links to my music, ways to support the channel and stuff. Above that, if you could, like, subscribe, and ring the bell. I greatly appreciate all three of those. That wraps it up for this one. We do have a special selection up next. Otherwise, I'll be back tomorrow. We'll continue on with this week's theme, exploring songs with choirs in them. Until next time, remember to be critical, not cynical, of the music you listen to, and have a fantastic morning, afternoon, or evening, whenever you choose to watch my videos.